Hey guys, Dawn Marie here, and today I'm going to show you how I teach my kids to read and then also how I pick out my school curriculum. This video is going to be packed with resources. Stay tuned. Well, if you're new to the channel, my name is Dawn Marie, and I am the stay-at-home homeschool mom of 4 kids 5 and under. I myself was also homeschooled, except for 1st and 2nd grade when I went to school, and it wasn't a really great school system, so I didn't really learn to read very well. So as we dive into reading, just know, if I can teach my kid to read, anybody can teach their kid to read. When I started off into this, I literally was like, I don't know the difference between a short vowel and a long vowel. How in the world am I going to teach my child to read? Like that one right there. So when I was picking out my homeschool curriculum, I was like, I'm going to need a lot of help in the reading department. I have no clue what I'm doing. So that will bring us to our first curriculum, which is Sing, Spell, Read, and Write. This is like dummy proof. I mean, I actually did this with my son and then have now taken what I learned. I basically taught myself how to read again, and I have passed that on and mixed it around and gotten some other resources I'll show you as well. So this Sing, Spell, Read, and Write, another reason that I picked it was because my son Jackson, I started to notice that he would learn things really well through songs. And so this incorporates tons of songs, lots of hands-on activities, lots of games, and it's great for families that have more than one kid because you, the mom, can be on the team of the younger kid, and then the older kid can be learning it and doing it by themselves. So if you have a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old that you are getting ready to teach to read, I would highly recommend this curriculum. If you are working on teaching a younger child to read, don't even bother with this yet. Because there's plenty of other resources that will be more age appropriate for your child. But this is really great. I mean, my daughter is 4 and she is doing this, but really just because it was what was in the house. And then I started teaching her how to read on her own without the bookwork. So if you are getting ready to teach a child who is maybe 4, 5, or 6, then this is going to be great, but I'll show you next what is better for your younger children. Let me just show you through this curriculum a little bit. So it has this amazing raceway chart that my son loved because every time he completed something, he could go to the next chart. And then everything is song-based. So there are charts that go with songs to get it to stick with your kids' brains better. And then with my daughter, since she is more a movement person, we would stand to sing the song so that she was moving and learning while she was moving. And lots of colorful books. So this is what the alphabet book looks like. This is the first one that I did with my son. Maybe this is my daughter Fiona's. Totally just let her do it how she wanted. But each letter comes with 4 pages and it's all the same. So you have what the sound is, you color it, and then you cut something out of a magazine, and then there's different activities and you practice drawing with it as well. So like I said, this kit had a ton of resources for the teacher, which I really needed, and it had a DVD. I mean, I even needed help I was like, I don't know how he holds his pencil right. I just know my grandma would be like, hey, you don't hold your pencil right. And I'd be like, well, this is how I learned. Or how do you properly form the letters? So this really has loads of resources. If you're a reading whiz and you remember all of the phonics rules, maybe this isn't something that you need, but all of the rest of it is awesome too. Like the songs were really good. It just stepped along really well. So anyways, this is kindergarten and 1st grade, if I didn't already say that. And let me show you a couple of the books. So the kindergarten books look like, they weren't really my favorite, but they were like colorful and fine. The kindergarten books look like this, and there's what a page looks like. They have vocabulary in the beginning, and then they read through them, and then the 1st grade books looked like this. They were a little bit more advanced, had different rules. So every time they learn a phonics rule, there's a game to play with it, and there's also a song to go with it. Obviously a CD. So definitely check the description box because I have all the links below. And I'm just going to throw Amazon links up, but check other websites like christianbooks.com. Sometimes they'll have sales, or just different smaller websites. I think I paid like $1.90 for this. But this is some of the pages that are the older kids. This would be the first grade book, and again, lots of colorful illustrations. So as well as all the books that come inside, there are lots of books that they make on their own, and they color and they read. So plenty of resources. With homeschool, you can make it as much or as little as you need. Here's a couple of the games. So the games are Go Fish and Bingo style games that you can play with more than one child, and then a few games they can play by themselves, like matching the sounds and the pictures together, and then the deck pond and the Ferris wheel ones you'll have to do with them. They could be played with more than one person, but they also could be solo. You know, you have to follow the Lord on this one, because I kind of remember asking about homeschool curriculum, and a teacher was showing it to me one time, and I was like, is this English? Like, is this for teaching kids English? Because I can't even understand what is going on right now. But I felt so bad because it was what everybody that I knew was doing. And it wasn't until I just said, this is what I feel a peace about. This is what the Lord's telling me to do. And it's worked out beautifully. So let's move along into how you teach your younger babies and children to read. I'll show you the program that I use for that. So the way that the Lord brought me this next program is so amazing. I mean, I'm just so thankful for Him. I wouldn't be picking a homeschool curriculum out without His help. You know, I'm at a chiropractor's office, and I feel to ask her what she teaches her child to read with. And I'm like thinking, I've spent all this money on a program. Why am I asking her this? And she came back with, oh, I read to my daughter in utero. By 4 years old, they were trying to put her in second grade reading, but she was 4. And we taught her to read actually when she was a baby. You know, the Lord has just started to put all these things in front of my eyes that make me realize the way Americans are starting to teach their kids to read, or continuing to teach their children to read, is not necessarily the right way. Now, I love teachers. This is not pinning anything on teachers. They're doing the best with the resources that they have. This is a much larger issue that I don't even feel like I need to get into, because this is not a debate on 5,000 other things. But just know that your kid's brain grows the most from 0 to 6 years old, and they are capable of far more than you would even believe. And it's not about starting your kids in school early. It's about teaching them to read early, because the whole world opens up to them. And in actuality, at 6 years old is when their brain starts to make a shift to where they're not learning language anymore. If you will research this out on your own, there are lots of resources, so you can come to your own conclusions. But basically what I have found is that Jackson was reading by 4. He was like fully reading by 5. Fiona, my 3-year-old, was reading 3-letter words at 3. The 2-year-old was pointing at words and by sight reading them at 2, like handfuls of words. And so was the 1-year-old. So yeah, enough said about that. But basically, after she tells me the curriculum she uses, the next day she's like, hey, do you need curriculum? Like, would you like mine? I just found it. Her daughter's way old, so here it was hidden, and she's bringing it to me. Here you go. Would you like this whole complete system that I have? So the Lord will bring you the resources that you need to get your kids what they need. And let's dive into this curriculum. Okay, so this program is designed more for the babies, and it comes with tons of resources. It has books that are like sliding words. It has DVDs, and the biggest thing that I've used is flashcards. My younger kids will sit in front of the DVDs. Sometimes they don't pay attention that well because they have been introduced to other kinds of TV. So the DVDs can be a little bit boring if they are used to watching other TV, and the program does recommend that they don't watch any other TV. So I have attempted that with my youngest, and we certainly we don't do a ton of TV, but the videos are really good for younger kids. They have great songs incorporated in them, but My favorite part though is the flashcards. So it comes with tons of flashcards that slide out like this, and they are double-sided. And so I will start with my babies. I actually did it at lunch with all of my kids, and I would pick 3 words at a time, and I would say, this word says ear. Can you say ear? They would say ear. Open it up. Show them this is an ear. Can you point to your ear? Can you touch your ear? And go through all of them like that. So as they learn the words, then I would start to ask them, and I would do it 2 at a time. You know, this curriculum comes with a DVD that's for the parent. So if you picked this, then it would give you the instructions for it. But I started teaching my 4-year-old to read with flashcards from my childhood that were just of the alphabet. I mean, you need nothing. Like, I'm showing you these resources, but you could literally get a dry erase board from the dollar store and a marker. You could get a paper and pen. You could get flashcards and like blank flashcards and make your own flashcards. There's probably resources online that you could print out, because basically what you need to teach your child first off the bat is all the sounds of the alphabet. A, B, K, D. It's not necessarily even as important to teach them the A, B, C, D. I mean, they do need to know those at some point, but the sounds that they make are the most important. Then once they understand all the sounds, you can start teaching them the blends of them, which would mean a B next to an A says ba, and then a C next to an A says ca. And then once they understand that, you can start to do the T. You know, something that I started doing around the house is in the middle of a sentence, I would be like, slow a word down and say it deliberately out loud, like I was sounding it out, so they could see that each word is made up of sounds from letters. So I would be like, oh, do you see that k, a, t over there? I mean, I can remember my daughter Fiona. I teach her the sounds of all the letters, and then the one day it was just like, I started writing 3-letter words out on a board, and she started reading them. It was amazing. Our kids are capable of so much more than we think, and you as a mom are capable of so much more than you think. So if you're like me, where you're like, I don't remember any of the rules after that, get some resources. There's probably free ones online, or they float around in the homeschool community. Ask the Lord, pray about it. He'll bring something to you. My aunt has brought me more curriculum that I've used, you know, because now that I went through the Sing, Spell, Read, and Write with my son Jackson, I have all the rules fresh in my head, so I can be teaching them to all my kids. So basically, my advice to you would be, if you have 0 budget, just start teaching your kids the alphabet sounds. Then start teaching them the blends together. Then go online and look up on Google, what are phonics rules? And it will tell you what the phonics rules are. There's tons of them, so don't get overwhelmed. Just start teaching them the easiest ones first, and they will slowly catch on to it. And then once they are, you know, if you're sending them to school, once they're in school, they will learn things over again. And then once you're through a curriculum, you know, my son Jackson, because he's older, he's sitting down and writing a lot of it. Like, he's learning to sing, spell, read, and write all at the same time. But even in the beginning of him learning to read, I started to notice that the bookwork was getting too heavy for him. He was getting bored with it. Well, part of the flexibility of homeschooling is you do more where you need it and you do less where you need it. So I was like, you know what, forget it. It's just like too much bookwork because he is only 5 years old. So I started to just go through and pick a few things out, but make sure that he had all of the phonics rules down. Like, so we would play the games, we would sing the songs, we would learn to read, but if he wasn't getting everything else, then that was okay. We'll go back and do those things again. So, what else can I show you about reading? Let me show you a Becca's reading program. So this is a Becca's reading program, and it seems really fun too. I'm not sure like how friendly it is with teaching and helping you to learn the things. If you need help with that, what I have here seems like it probably is pretty good, but anyways, it comes with loads of flashcards. So this is the rule, or this is the blend. ST together says st, like stop. You know, something to know when you're teaching your kids to read, they don't have to talk. You can teach your babies to read. They can point at the words. If you will YouTube like teaching your babies to read, you'll find lots of different videos on that. of people specifically how they're actually doing it. But so this goes through all the different rules, and then on the back it will give you a bunch more words for them to practice reading or to practice writing. There are tons of them, so don't get overwhelmed. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. When I started Sing, Spell, Read, and Write, my son Jackson was 4 and I was pregnant with I don't know who. Maybe I don't know. We just crawled through it. We did a little bit every day. I didn't even do what was intended for each day. It's just, you know, in the beginning you just need something to get them started, and their brains are like sponges when they're younger, and so you want to get as much in as you can. You know, a lot of times kids get in trouble, and I know I did this with Jackson because he's a boy. I would be like, oh, he just needs to get his energy out. I didn't realize he actually was mentally bored. Like, that was what the problem was, that his brain needed stimulated. He didn't need any more energy out. He needed his brain to be stimulated. He was bored and getting into trouble. So school really helped solve that. I didn't do it for long a day. When I started, it was maybe 20 to 30 minutes every day. When I started teaching the girls to read, I taught my daughter Fiona during lunchtime. We literally do those flashcards at lunch. I would go through the whole alphabet. Flashcards I have, which I don't know where they are. Sorry. They literally just say the names, a big A and a little a on it. That's all it says. And we would go through or put them in a different order. K, and I'd make them say it after me. You know, they will look at your mouth, or they should be looking at your mouth and looking at the cards. A baby learns to talk by looking at your mouth. So you'll want to make sure that looking at your mouth and at the flashcard, trying to kind of get their attention to look at the flashcard too. All right, let me move on to how I picked the rest of my curriculum, and what advice I have for you on that. Okay, so a few things to consider when you are picking out homeschool curriculum. You know, the sky is the limit with this, and I think that you really need to sit down and evaluate a few things. First, how much time do I want to be devoting to this? Do I have one child and I don't work, so I can spend all day because we're kind of bored doing school, or as much as, you know, their concentration or attention span is? Or do I have 4 kids and so I need to meet every child's needs, but I don't need to be doing extra things just for the sake of doing extra things? You need to consider your strengths and weaknesses. What are the subjects that you're going to be like, oh, I could teach that on my own because that's my favorite, or I don't know anything about that, I'm really going to need some help. What areas are your children's interests in? What are the things that they're good at and not so great at? You can start to tell that from a young age. I always am praying to ask the Lord for wisdom with this, and to have him reveal to me my kids' strengths and weaknesses. What has God, and I shouldn't even call it that, because actually my children are dominant in some areas and non-dominant in others, because God doesn't want everybody to be great at everything. He wants them to be great at what he's called them to be. I don't teach my kids they can be anything they want to be. I teach them they can be anything that God has created them to be. Whatever he's designed them for, that's what they're going to excel in. If they're trying to be in something else, they're just going to be frustrated. So, what are your kids' strengths and weaknesses? And then what is their learning style? My daughter, like I said, is a physical movement girl. I keep that in mind when I'm looking at curriculum or when I'm teaching it to her. My son has some sort of music part of his brain. I think all kids do to an extent, you know, and all kids are gonna wanna move around to an extent, but you will notice with your children certain ways that they will learn things better than others. And so you wanna keep that in mind with your curriculum. You know, you also wanna consider how much am I willing to financially invest in this? There are some programs where it's like, here's our Excel Deluxe, wonderful, amazing package, and it's including a ton of stuff that you don't necessarily need. I think a lot of the extras sometimes that I've found in certain packages is books that you could get at the library or probably exchange with ones you already have in your house. A lot of times there's not anything very special about the extra reading that you're doing. It's just what this company has decided to include in their package. I myself have never stayed with one company or group of curriculum. I have picked different things based on my kids' strengths and how they learn, and that's how I've picked out my curriculum. So I request catalogs because I'm like a physical hands-on person. So catalogs that I have in my house currently are Timberdoodle, and on the inside they have packages. You can buy things separate through all the companies, but this one has different companies within this magazine, if that makes sense. And then Abeka is another great one. I did that when I was a kid, and so I'm doing some of that now. And so basically the way that I pick out my curriculum is I sit down and I'll take a book, because in the books they'll have, like, they'll go to first grade, okay? My son's in halfway through first grade, and so it will tell you, let me find first grade. So first grade, I'll take a catalog and I will, because I'm like, I don't even remember what you need in first grade. So I'll write down all the different categories. There's language arts, there's math, there's thinking skills, science, geography, history, and social studies. And then, you know, the extracurriculars of STEM, art, learning tools. You get as much help as you need and what fits into your lifestyle. Does everybody need art in kindergarten? No, probably not, because you probably color at your house plenty often enough, or finger paint or do painting projects. So you don't necessarily need specifically what they want, but if art is an interest for your child, so then I will go through and pull up a bunch of tabs on my computer and look at all the different programs. And what does the program look like? What do the insides of the books look like? Does it say it comes with all the resources I need? Do I need extra resources? And honestly, I'm so thankful for the Holy Spirit. If you have stumbled upon my video, I have a series about the Holy Spirit. I would not be surviving life without him. So basically, at the end of the day, I'm like getting all the natural wisdom that I can. And then I'm like, okay, Holy Spirit, please, you know, I'm always praying to ask the Holy Spirit to direct me. But after I've done all my research, I come back again and I'm like, okay, Holy Spirit, what do you want me to do for my kids? Because you know what they've been called to do. And I just pick what I've got a piece about. And I pick what I feel the Lord telling me to pick. And it's worked out, and I'm so thankful for it. So I will go through and I've got all my different categories. And then after I've made a decision, I'm kind of making sure, do I have something for this category, this category, this category? And then where are the cheapest places that I can get them from? So I have a couple more curriculums I'll show you really quick. But just know that, like, I'm not a fan of cyber schools. I've never done them before because you're homeschooled. So you have the freedom to choose. You can dive into a subject and take as much time as your child needs, or you can go as quickly as you need. This does not need to take all day long, okay? Like, homeschool is supposed to be fitting into your life. You're supposed to create an environment where they're always learning. And I'm like big into my kids learning. So I'm not saying this lightly, that it shouldn't take all day long. But I just think you can get so heavy on these tasks. Like, do they need to color 5,000 pictures? No, they're not in school. They're not waiting for the person at the desk next to them to finish what they're doing, or standing in a line for 5 hours. It's not supposed to take as long as regular school takes. So if you're doing your stuff and you're like, we spent an hour today and my kid's in first grade, that's awesome. Or if you're having, you know, I do some of the extracurriculars. Let me show them to you actually, and I'll tell you about it. So for history and math and science, I did them all together with my 2-year-old. She was 3 at the time, my 2-year-old, my 3-year-old, and my 5-year-old. I just sat them all down on the couch in front of me because I picked out for last year, with the way my life was and all my kids, I was like, I don't need to have a hands-on demonstration for every little thing. I'm not going all over the world to get supplies for my kindergartners' science experiments. Like, we do hands-on stuff. I do hands-on stuff, but it doesn't need to happen every day. It doesn't even happen for every principal. They can look at the picture and get the idea of it. I really liked history. These resources are from Abeka. I liked Abeka for history. Lots of colorful pictures. It started in America, and then we traveled around the world, and that was really great. I would sit my kids on the couch, stand in front of them, and read through this, and we just did a couple pages at a time, and that was really all the more that was. You know, there's so many learning resources out there now. It was like, hey, we're learning about the United States of America, and I have a map from the Olympics, or I have a puzzle that is the United States of America, and so we would sort of incorporate them, or it all went together in their brain, because we'd say, oh, now we're going to California. Look, do you remember where California is on the map or on your puzzle? And so you just sort of, it's so fun. Homeschooling is so much fun. So that was history. Now this year, I accidentally purchased at the same time. I didn't realize it was going to be different, but they are gigantic flashcards that come with a teaching page, and I will be doing these. Let me pull a card out to show you. I really don't even know. I haven't investigated these much because I was like, oh wow, this feels like a duplicate. So Columbus, and then the lesson on the back. So I will stand in front of it and teach it to them. I will probably do this for all of my kids because I don't know where to put the rest of them. I mean, I found it to be best to do the stuff that my son had to be sitting and really concentrating on, his book work, while the kids napped. And then once my daughter started doing some book work, it would be like, put the younger two to bed, let my son play quietly, do the book work with my daughter, put her to bed, and then quick do the book work with my son till the rest of them woke up. But the more that I could do with everybody awake and figure that out, the better it was. So this is a Becca, and giant cards here for history. And then I really liked this one. You know, you can sometimes forget to teach your kids things. Like, you just get so busy about life that all of the basics you're sort of just do for them, or you forget about it, or you forget to teach them the why behind it so that they can know why you have to brush your teeth every night, or why it's safe to do X, Y, and Z. So this was really great. This is technically, this was health. And it was very interactive for my kids, as far as lots of questions to ask them. So since I was teaching it to everyone, there were a few spots in the book where you were supposed to write things down, and I just would ask them the questions and have them pick what it was. Then for science, for kindergarten, I again did this with everybody. Really colorful and fun. Lots of pictures and colors. Now, so that was their kindergarten science from Rebecca, and then I totally goofed and got the teacher's manual. I totally thought that teacher's edition meant it had the curriculum for my son and then the teacher's help for me. It did not. It meant it was a teacher's manual, but it actually had the pages to each thing on there and then the notes on the side. And since I was teaching it to my son and all the rest of the kids at the same time, I mean, I would emphasize the things with him, and if they caught it, that was great. So if there were activities, we just did it on a separate piece of paper, and it worked out. Now math. Math is one of my favorite resources that I've found so far. It's so cool because my son loves Legos, and he you know, learns great when he can have something hands-on. And so this math curriculum was really cool. It's called Math UC, and it comes with the DVD, and you can watch it as the parent by yourself and then teach it to your kid. But I was time saving, and so my son and I would watch it together, and then we would do the activities together. Let me show you what it looks like. The teacher was really great. He was teaching it to a classroom, and the lessons were super quick and easy. This represents 100. This is the ones, the whole way up to the tens, tons of blocks, so that they can see what they're learning. What I really liked about the book that comes with it, the workbook, is that it's huge. What the design of this is that you do as much or as little as you need. It doesn't look very colorful, but the blocks are the color part, so it doesn't really matter. They don't do it by grade. They recommend to start with primer, and then alpha, I believe, is the next one up. So when we're done with that, we'll start the next one, and you won't have to repurchase the blocks. You just get the book. So it does feel like an investment at first, but then after that, you're just buying a workbook. Then, you know, with your extracurriculars, you can do as much or as little as you want. You can get as creative as you want. You know, here at Full Joy Mom, we release videos on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So if you would like to, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I'm always bringing you tips and tricks on how to love Jesus and enjoy the life you're living. I hope you guys have an amazing Full Joy Mom day.